Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Across the South. We're at episode 9. We're about to hit double digits. It's getting pretty exciting. I'm currently in the process of moving, so if you're watching and you think that I'm about to tell a scary story after Halloween, that's not the case. There's just very bare walls, and I'm doing what I can with what I've got for right now until I do get done moving, but that's not going to stop me from coming with another episode of Across the South. So we're going to roll the intro and get right into it. All right, so there's a lot of information to cover this week. We're going to do our week 12 recap, go in a little bit of depth because a lot of stuff happened. And then, you'll just figure out everything else as we get to it. So, starting off, we had Arkansas at LSU. The final score was 22-23 LSU. So, a close win, but yet another close loss for the Razorbacks. And out of the 102 years that LSU and Arkansas have played together, this past weekend was only the 17th time that it was kicked off before noon. I mean, that's just a crazy stat on its own. LSU has 11 wins now whenever they have 3+ turnovers. This game against Arkansas, 3+ turnovers. Another stat for LSU's defense. Arkansas had 19 consecutive scores when in the red zone, whether touchdown, field goal, didn't really matter. They scored points in the red zone, and LSU stopped them twice, 2 times when Arkansas was on the 1 yard line, and then it was a turnover on downs for LSU to take over. So the potent offense under Bobby Petrino and with Talon Green it wasn't in effect this past Saturday in Death Valley. And it's crazy because Arkansas's quarterback Green, he leads the FBS in total yards per game with 335.7. Leads the FBS 335.7 yards per game, and yet they're still losing. It doesn't make any sense. But this is LSU's 4th straight win against Arkansas. The Golden Boot stays in Baton Rouge. LSU is bowl eligible for the 26th consecutive season, which is crazy with the firing of Brian Kelly and with Wilson taking over as interim head coach. And this was his first win as the interim head coach. But again, with the close losses for Arkansas, 5 of the 6 conference losses for Arkansas have been by 6 points or less, excluding Auburn, where they lost by 10. And then 6 of the 8 losses of their total losses have been by 3 points or less. And that's tied for the most by any FBS team since 2000. I mean, you have 6 losses by 3 points or less. You have one of the leading offenses, one of the best quarterbacks in yards per game in college football, and you're still losing games. I understand that Arkansas's defense isn't all that great, but you have to be able to put more points on the board when you have this efficient of an offense. I mean, 35-41 against Ole Miss. 31-32 Memphis. I had a typo in here in my notes. 45-42 against Texas A&M. 31-34 against Tennessee. 33-24. I guess I put a comma instead of a dash. To Auburn, which isn't 10 points. Something happened in my notes here. 38-35 to Mississippi State, and 22-23 this past weekend against LSU. I'm not sure where they can go from here except up. That's the only way to go, because if they keep going down, they're still going to be in the search for a head coach. It won't be Bobby Petrino. And if that coach doesn't come in and start fixing things, they're going to keep going down. They're about to reach the double digits for consecutive losses since 2017 or 2020. So the Razorbacks are still struggling to really find their coach, their groove, and basically their culture all in all on how their football program is going to continue throughout the years. And speaking of a struggling coach, South Carolina at Texas A&M 30-31. Texas A&M was down 30-3 at halftime. I'm going to say that again. 30-3 at halftime. Number 3 Texas A&M losing by 27 points at the half to unranked South Carolina. And South Carolina's win probability reached 97.8% in the third quarter. That's almost a guaranteed win. All they have to do is outlast, run down the clock and make sure that you keep Texas A&M out of the end zone and from scoring points. What happened? Texas A&M went and scored points. They completed the largest comeback in A&M history. And SEC, this one blew my mind. SEC teams had lost 286 straight games since 2004. They were 0-286 when trailing by at least 27 points. Texas A&M, the first team to complete that type of comeback. Marcel Reed was 22 for 39, 439 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He was the first 400-yard passer since Kellen Mond back in 2018. So Marcel Reed had a big year. They're 10-0 for just the first time since 2012. But the question kind of floating around is Texas A&M really that great? Looking across the SEC, largest margins of victory. Texas A&M, margin of victory, 13.4 points. Second place, Georgia, 11 points. Then Alabama at 7.9. Ole Miss 6.3, and Vanderbilt with 4.3. But you have to look at who Texas A&M has faced and who they've won against. They beat Auburn, who's 1-6 in conference by 1 score. They beat Mississippi State, who's 1-5, Florida, who's 2-4, Arkansas, who's 0-5 by 3. LSU, who's 2-4, Missouri, who's 2-3, and South Carolina, who's 1-7. All 8 of those teams have under 500 in conference, under 500 conference record. So they're not even. They have a losing record in conference, but this is everyone who Texas A&M has played now until they get to Texas in the final week. That'll be their first time facing a above 500 team. That's probably going to be the story that's going to tell us, is Texas A&M really that good? And I've said it week in and week out that this is going to be the game that Texas A&M is going to struggle with, and it's going to test them, especially being in Austin. But some good news for Texas A&M is they finalized a 6-year extension for Tim Elko. He's only in his second year. He's undefeated and ranked number 3, just his second season. And with this extension, they would pay him more than $11 million per year, making him a top 5 highest paid coach. So they're pulling out the money bags. They're digging in their pockets. But it's not a Jimbo Fisher deal. I think they learned their lesson with that. And they're going to play this smart, but they've definitely got the right guy with Coach Tim Elko. A team who's still trying to figure out if they got the right coach is Alabama. And Alabama hosted Oklahoma, and they ended up losing for the first time since week 1, 23-21. And one thing I noticed, because I watched majority of these games this past weekend, I got very confused on who was Brent Venables and who was Kalen DeBoer. The only way you knew was one was wearing a hoodie and the other was wearing a polo, but it baffled me how much they look like twins. You do a side-by-side, comment down below. Tell me if you think the same thing, because I got confused thinking that DeBoer did not wear the hoodie of death and instead switched to a polo. But the hoodie of death is no longer a thing since they lost this game, and it's the second straight time that they've lost to Oklahoma. So Oklahoma has Alabama's number. You'd think that with Alabama and Georgia, that high-class rivalry, I think Alabama's got a new one with Oklahoma. Ty Simpson for Alabama went 28 for 42, 326 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception that was returned, I think 87 yards for a touchdown. He did throw for 246 yards in the first half, which was a career high for him. You have to forgive me, everybody, if you're watching and see me contort my body because I'm sitting in the floor. Um, uh, Oklahoma only had 212 total yards of offense compared to Alabama's 406. So Oklahoma had less total yards of offense than Ty Simpson did in just the first half. Yet they still won. I don't understand how Alabama managed to do this, but they did. This was the largest differential in yards and still losing. In, I think, excuse me, I've got burps. The largest differential in points and still lose. I think in college football or FBS, I don't know the true stat of it. I just know it is a 406 to 212 total yard differential is massive, and to still lose is crazy on its own. Um, but I asked the question, like, how do you have that much of a differential and still lose? Oklahoma's defense is what it came down to. They had a pick six and a blocked field goal that kept Alabama off the board and ultimately from taking the lead. Now, whenever you watch that game or you look back at the highlights, there is the Oklahoma defender. What's the word I'm looking for? There's a word for the penalty. Leverage. They can't leverage. They can't. They're not allowed to jump over the center or the linemen to get into the backfield to block the field goal. That happened. If you can't do it in the NFL, you can't do it in college. So for this call to be missed, either they didn't call it because the kick was shanked so far left that it was towards the sideline and nowhere near the field goal post, that they were just like, it didn't matter. I think you still have to call it because you move them closer. This is, again, a controversy with the officials in an Oklahoma game. I'm not sure how they missed that call. If there hasn't been anything done about it. There should be, but there's not much we can do about it now. But for Oklahoma's kicker, Tate Sindell, he's 7 for 7 on field goals of 50 plus yards, leading the FBS. So Oklahoma has a great kicker. He's really building up his draft stock. I don't know what his year is or how much eligibility he still has in college. If he wanted to go to the draft, I'm sure he'd get picked, especially with that stat there. Again, Alabama's first loss since week 1, but it's also their first conference loss. They were undefeated. They now have their first conference loss, having 2 losses on the year, and this pushes Bama out of the SEC championship game. If you remember, it was Texas A&M and Alabama undefeated at the top. Now it's kind of looking like Texas A&M and Georgia could still be Alabama because they have the tiebreaker with a win over Georgia, but we'll find out later on down the road. Oklahoma snapped Alabama's 17 home game win streak. It's their first home loss under DeBoer. And Oklahoma's got 4 wins against ranked opponents. That's the most in the country. 4 wins against ranked opponents. Most in the country. And yet they're just barely squeaking by into the college football playoffs. The most wins against any ranked opponent, and they're barely squeaking into the college football playoffs. So they have as many wins against ranked opponents as Ohio State and Indiana combined. So, I mean, there's a lot of talk of like who's better, like why is there SEC bias? There it is. You have one team in the SEC who's won just as much alone as the number 1 and number 2 seeds in the nation. So I understand like wanting good teams and wanting a variety of teams to make it more diverse in the college football playoffs. The SEC is just always going to be there, and they're going to have multiple teams, and that's just one of the reasons alone. brought up that it could be Georgia in the SEC championship against Texas A&M. Let's talk about Texas and Georgia. Texas goes into Athens, gets whooped 10-35, and this is Georgia's. I think they're 4-0 against Texas. So Kirby Smart knows what he's doing whenever it comes to facing the Texas Longhorns. Gunnar Stockton for Georgia went 24 for 29, crazy already, 229 yards, 4 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. He has produced 27 total touchdowns this season so far, 19 passing, 8 rushing. So he does it both through the air and on the ground, but more through the air. Arch Manning on the other side with Texas, 27-43, 251 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I didn't know this whenever I came across it, but apparently Arch was he was considering committing to Georgia, and then at the end of his recruitment, he switched over to Texas. I'm not sure why. Could have been money for NIL, but I think he definitely would have developed more and developed better at Georgia than he currently is at Texas. But Georgia improved to 9-0 at home in Stanford Stadium against top 10 teams and Kirby Smart's 10 seasons. They're 55-5 at home under Kirby Smart. So the home field advantage in Athens is huge, especially for Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. And speaking of home field, Ole Miss needed it when facing Florida. That game was crazy. 24-34 was the final, but it was not anywhere near that until the last couple minutes. Florida led 24-20 at the half. Kiffin was 0-3 when facing Florida. It looked like it was going to be 0-4, but since 2020, Lane Kiffin has 34 home wins. That's the second most in the SEC. Who's first? Alabama with 37. Trinidad Chambliss, 26-35, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But the player of the game goes to the Ole Miss running back, Keywan Lacey, 224 yards on 31 carries and 3 touchdowns. That was his first ever career 200-yard game. And if you're keeping up with the Lane Kiffin coaching trail of where he's going to go, Florida needed to beat Lane Kiffin in order to make a run at him for head coach. Because if you beat him, Ole Miss kind of falls out of the playoff bracket with that upset. And then, if Ole Miss is angry that he lost and Florida makes a run, he could consider leaving to go to Florida. New Mexico State at Tennessee, some out-of-conference games here. 9-42 Tennessee. Tennessee Tech at Kentucky, 10-42. Kentucky takes the win there. Very similar, eerily similar scores there. 9-42, 10-42. Pretty strange that both SEC teams put up 42 points and just only Tennessee Tech was able to put up a touchdown. Lastly, we had Mississippi State at Missouri. I thought this game would be kind of an upset, and it all just depended on how Mississippi State played, and they didn't play all that great. The standout player was Missouri running back. This was the weekend of the running backs, if you couldn't tell. Ahmed Hardy. He had 25 carries, 300 yards, and 3 touchdowns. This was Hardy's. This was the second time in Missouri history that a running back had a 300-yard game. You'd have to go all the way back to 1998 when Devin West ran for 319 yards against Kansas. That was back when they were in the Kansas Big Ten. We'll roll with it. Kansas Big Ten. I don't remember what conference Missouri was in before transferring over to the SEC. But that performance by Hardy definitely aided the freshman quarterback for Missouri, Matt Zollers. Brett Perbula is still out with the ankle injury. He was kind of warming up on the sidelines, testing it out, but they ultimately went with Zollers. He was 8 for 15, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So he didn't do all that great, but the running from Hardy definitely helped out. Blake Shapen was in for Mississippi State for a little bit. Then later on, he was substituted out. But while he was in, 19 of 33, 199 yards, and 2 interceptions. So the turnovers definitely hurt Mississippi State. And it's crazy because Mississippi State dominated the time of possession during this game. And normally, when you can utilize the time of possession, the longer you hold the ball, the less that the opponent has it in their hands, the better you are and the better chance you have at winning. But when you have those turnovers and you're not as efficient on offense, it doesn't always guarantee a win. You have to be productive with the time you have. Both of Shapen's interceptions were returned for touchdowns, and Missouri scored after a fumble recovery from a botched field goal. So 3 turnovers, they scored on all of them, and that's ultimately what led to the 49-27 win for Missouri. And they've won their 23rd straight against an unranked opponent, which, I mean, they don't have that great of a history against ranked opponents. They're really good against unranked opponents. Do with that information what you will. Yeah. But I brought up earlier the Lane Kiffin coaching carousel, if you will. And there is so much information that's going into this, whether it's rumors or if it's truth. There's so much information going on just solely based around Lane Kiffin. I mean, he was reportedly given an ultimatum by Ole Miss, and he had to announce before the Egg Bowl next weekend if he's going to be leaving for Florida or for LSU. Kiffin then goes on the Pat McAfee show and he just says, no, that's not true at all. He's quoted, "There has been no ultimatum, anything like that at all. And so I don't know where that came from. Like a lot of stuff that comes out there, like I said, man, we're having a blast. I love it here." So it sounds like I'm having a great time at Ole Miss. We're doing good things. Why would I want to leave? Well, here's the kicker. Kiffin's ex-wife, Layla, his son, Knox, and his brother, Chris Kiffin's son, visited Gainesville on Sunday. The next day, Layla, with other family members, visited Baton Rouge. So, I mean, you could say his ex-wife, but he's still got kids. If his kids go somewhere, he's probably going to follow to be part of their life as well. So, this could be one of those things that you send someone and you get it reported that, hey, his family's over here. What's happening? His family's over in Gainesville. Is he going to leave for Gainesville? Excuse me again. But Kiffin could be doing it as a ploy to just be like, hey, you go get people talking and I'm going to see what Ole Miss is going to give me, because sources have said that Ole Miss have made it clear to Kiffin and to his agent, Jimmy Sexton, that they would match any contract offer that the Gators and Tigers might make. So if Florida, for whatever reason, was like, hey, we'll give you $80 million for 6 years or some crazy thing like that, Ole Miss apparently is ready to match that number. So again, you send family, you make people talk, you kind of see what's going on without telling anyone, bring it back, set it on the table and say, hey, here's what LSU is going to give me. Are you going to match that or not? And I mean, this makes sense whenever you have the agent that Kiffin does. He, if you don't know who Jimmy Sexton is, he has many NCAA coaches that he is an agent for, a lot of big names. Like, let's see, just in the SEC alone, where's my notes for this? I know I did it. I know I said who. Maybe I didn't. Oh, yes. Okay, never mind. Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, Kalen DeBoer, are all clients of Sexton. What does that tell you? I'm going to tell you now. So Kiffin has an annual salary of $9 million per year with a potential $2.6 million in bonuses. He was the 10th highest paid coach in the FBS this season. So he's making really great money. And that, so 10th highest in the FBS. He's only the 5th highest in the SEC under Kirby Smart, $13.3 million, Steve Sarkisian of $10.8 million, Kalen DeVore, $10.3 million, and then Brian Kelly, before he was fired, at $10.2 million. And again, Smart, Sarkisian, and DeVore are all clients under Jimmy Sexton. So when it comes down to it, if you don't know, the way that agents work is obviously the client hires the agent. Well, however much money the client makes, the agent's going to want a percentage of that. You get people paid, you get Kirby Smart paid $13.3 million. Sexton's probably going to take $3 million to represent Smart. So he's going to work and do his best and try to finagle to get Kiffin to be really a very high paid head coach so that he can also put money in his pocket. Kiffin's led the Rebels to a 54-19 record during his 6 seasons at Ole Miss, and they've won at least 10 games for the 4th time in the last, apologies, I keep burping. He's won at least 10 games for the 4th time in the last 5 seasons, and that's the most successful stretch in program history for Ole Miss. So there's so much information that goes into this. Do I think he's going to leave? No, I've said this before. I think he really enjoys being at Ole Miss and having the success that he has. I mean, he pretty much made Ole Miss his school. He's not really following under anyone's footsteps. There wasn't a fire and he was an interim head coach. He wasn't an assistant and then someone retire and he replaced him. That kind of thing where people are going to be remembered of, like, if Kiffin was still at Alabama, and he took over and still succeeded. It's like, well, he had Saban's team. No, this is all Lane Kiffin, and I don't think he's gonna leave. The same time that I say that, he always complains about the transfer portal and that it needs to be fixed, and yet he uses every loophole he can inside of the transfer portal rules to get players from anywhere and build his team. So Kiffin's a coach that's hard to trust, and it's based off of his past actions. But I feel like this is the one that he should be smart enough to stay, get paid, keep having success. You've pretty much got it to where you're going to be in the college football playoffs, where the previous years you've been so close. You're starting to reap your crop and really bring in your harvest, I should say, of all the seeds you've planted years ago. And, moving to the playoffs, another college football playoff update. Everything's changed, especially with the Alabama loss to Oklahoma. So currently what we're looking at now until December 7th, or until the end of this week, next week, whatever does happen, number 12 Tulane at number 5 Texas Tech. The winner of that game goes on to number 4 Georgia. Georgia has now replaced Alabama as the 4 seed. They've got that first round bye, whereas before they had to go in the first round and like the play-in round. So Georgia now sitting pretty comfortably. As long as they beat Georgia Tech, they'll be good. Number 9 Notre Dame at number 8 Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to have a big matchup there if they stay inside of inside the college football playoffs, because if they do beat Notre Dame, already a tough opponent, they're going to have to go and face number 1 Ohio State to continue their dreams of being national champions, and we all know that that's not an easy battle. Number 11 Miami at number 6 Ole Miss. The winner of that game will go on to play number 3 Texas A&M. I got things to say with Miami, but that's coming up here in a few. Number 10 Alabama at number 7 Oregon. The winner of that game would go on to face number 2 Indiana. I think that's interesting. One, Kalen DeBoer versus Dan Lanning at Oregon. That'd be a good game. And if Alabama wins, they go and play Indiana, who kind of has the Big Ten of the Nick Saban of the Big Ten with Kurt Signetti, with his 10-year contract extension that he just recently signed. That one's going to be interesting. All the others, I mean, you could say Texas Tech and Georgia would be a good game. I think Georgia's got it. Oklahoma probably not going to win against Notre Dame. Ole Miss would win against Miami, but then you just have interconference with Ole Miss and Texas A&M. So, yeah, definitely Alabama at Oregon to face number 2 Indiana. My eyes would be set on that game if this college football playoff bracket stays the way it is. Now, the last team in for the SEC would be Vanderbilt, and this is what's going to happen for the Commodores to reach their ultimate goal of being in the college football playoffs. They need to beat Kentucky and Tennessee. They have to win out. So their next 2 games have to win. They need a higher ranked team to lose. So out of those 12 seeds that I listed, like Tulane or, any of those, they need them to lose. Especially like if Bama loses to Auburn, Miami loses to Pitt, or BYU to Cincinnati, because BYU is in the CFP ranking. They're just not in the top 12. So to the Miami thing that I referenced earlier, why is Miami in? Because, well, you could say committee bias, whatever. We're going to go into the details here. So far, Miami is the selection committee's highest ranked ACC team at number 13 in the AP poll. Until the participants of the ACC championship game are clear, the highest ranked team is going to continue to appear here at EI Miami. So until you have your ACC championship teams, blah versus blah, for the ACC championship team, it's going to continue to be Miami. Miami only has a 7.1 chance of reaching the ACC championship. They have to win out, as well as having a couple losses above in order to reach the ACC championship. But pretty much that whoever wins the ACC is going to get the number 11 seed. And I know this is an SEC podcast, but I just got to clear all of this up. So, because I know that there's confusion when it comes to the college football playoffs with AP poll, CFP rankings, and then how everyone gets seeded. So I'm just trying to clear up all of that information. So looking at Georgia Tech, who leads the ACC, they're number 1 in the ACC, but yet they're not ranked in above Miami or in the college football playoffs. So Georgia Tech's currently ranked number 16 in the AP poll. They were undefeated for a long time, and then they got a loss a couple weeks ago. So they're a win away from a guaranteed spot in the ACC championship game. If they don't beat Georgia, then they must win the ACC championship in order to reach the college football playoffs. So Georgia Tech either gets a win and beat Georgia to go to, if they beat Georgia, they're guaranteed a spot in the college football playoffs. If not, they have to win the ACC championship. So I said Georgia Tech's leading the ACC. Here's the standings. I'm not going to go through all the ACC teams, but just to give you an idea of where Miami is in the ACC. Georgia Tech's 9-1 overall, 6-1 in the conference. Virginia, 9-2 overall, 6-1 in the conference. Pittsburgh in third, 7-3, 5-1 in the conference. SMU, 7-3, 5-1 in the conference. Miami, 8-2, 4-2 in the conference, and yet they're ranked higher than, I think, all of these teams. They're over Georgia Tech, Virginia, Pitt, and SMU with the 13th being ranked 13th in the college football playoffs and getting that 11 seed because they're one of the fifth highest ranked in their conference. And I still don't get it. I don't understand. I'm going to try to make it sound a little bit more comprehensible with what I'm about to say. Because when you look at Miami, they have wins over number 6 Notre Dame from week 1, number 18 South Florida in like week 3, number 18 Florida State, and they also beat North Carolina State. There's a reason I'm bringing up North Carolina State. Georgia Tech's biggest win was over Clemson when they were ranked number 12 in week 3. They stayed undefeated until a couple weeks ago when they lost to NC State. So that is the the tiebreaker there. Miami beat NC State. Georgia Tech lost late in the season to NC State, and they also have a weaker strength of schedule. I mean, I've said Miami won against 3 ranked opponents. Georgia Tech only faced 1 ranked opponent, that being Clemson back in week 3. So that kind of clears that up as to why Miami's in the college football playoffs and Georgia Tech is not yet, unless they go on to the ACC championship, and then you could see Miami just out of there. So there's a very low chance that Miami does go to the college football playoffs, and I know there's an argument about why Notre Dame is ranked above them when Miami beat them. Again, it's about when you win, when you lose. If you lose late in the season, you're more likely to face backlash than in week 2 if you lost to someone then. But I'm so sorry about all the adjusting and noises I'm making from sitting in the floor. But here's the difference between the SEC and everyone else when it comes to, I guess, beating ranked opponents, because that's what we were talking about with Miami. So wins against ranked opponents by conference. I'm about to tell you why the SEC is the best and why there is SEC bias, because I brought it up earlier. Wins against ranked opponents by conference. SEC 18. Most of that is in conference. A lot of SEC teams are ranked. A ranked team versus a ranked team, you're guaranteed to get one of those wins. Second place, the ACC with 8. Then you have the Big 12 with 6. And then you have the Big 10 with 4. Those 4 wins are from Ohio State and Indiana. Remember that stat earlier with Texas A&M? There you go. Only 4. They have their only ranked wins in their conference with 4. And yet, Ohio State fans are losing their mind that there are so many SEC teams in the college football playoffs. Play stronger opponents. Play more ranked opponents. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I can't help that Greg Sankey is like, hey, we're going to have 9 conference games for the next 4 years. And we're going to make sure that we run the college football playoffs. I don't know what to tell you. And again, with the Notre Dame thing, Notre Dame is guaranteed a spot all years. They were 0-2 in the first 2 weeks of regular season. They dropped to 24th in the AP poll. So you know that if they have one big win, they're going to jump up 10. They need to join a conference. I hate the independence of Notre Dame. I don't understand it. I don't get it. The fact that they're guaranteed that the highest rank they can reach is number 5, and that's just guaranteed because they're Notre Dame and they have the money to go towards ESPN and everything else. Make them join a conference. I see it as unfair and uncompetitive. It's like a private school going against a public school. They have all the money and they're just like, yeah, here's your win because you've paid for it. You've physically paid your dues with cash. I'm going to get out of it. we're going to look towards week 13 because the video is already at 40 minutes. I need to sum everything up, and there's quite a bit to talk about in this last little bit outside of the hard floor that I'm sitting on currently and how much this sucks. But we're going to get comfortable in the next coming week. So, starting off, number 22 at number 18, Oklahoma. This will make for a good game, I believe, because Missouri is... I don't really know what they're fighting for. They're still competitive no matter what. The only issue is Missouri has trouble with ranked opponents. They're 0-6 against ranked opponents. They're facing a top 10 team with Oklahoma at Oklahoma. It could be an upset. They could ruin Oklahoma's chances of going to the college football playoffs. But I think Oklahoma is at the point where they know what's on the line, especially with this last game against Alabama, that they're not going to let Missouri get the best of them unless there's just a complete and total fall apart with the Sooners. A couple out of conference, Samford at number 3, Texas A&M. Texas A&M should win that. And then Charlotte at number 4, Georgia. Georgia should handle that. So A&M and Georgia are pretty much looking at the final week of the regular season with A&M going against Texas at Texas, and then Georgia going against Georgia Tech in Atlanta. Georgia Tech is the home team for that, even though it's on a neutral site. Then you have Mercer at Auburn. Now, if you remember last week, I said Ashton Daniels would have to, if he wanted to retain his red shirt eligibility, he would have to sit this game, and we weren't really sure what decision was being made. Well, the decision has been made. Daniels is going to sit. He's going to retain his red shirt so that way he can come back next year for the 2026 season. So then the question goes, well, do you start Jackson Arnold or do you start the freshman, I think 5-star freshman, Deuce Knight? I have an answer, and the answer is they're going with Deuce Knight. So it kind of seems like Jackson Arnold's college career is done. He was at Oklahoma, didn't do great, transferred to Auburn, stayed in a lot longer than he probably should have. And then they really haven't looked back. They've kept Daniels since that game. But it'll be nice to see what Deuce Knight can do, especially for the future of Auburn. If he holds up to his high projection. I know he's a freshman, but they're playing Mercer, which it's a lot of history between Mercer and Auburn. So I think it'll be a good game. But if all doesn't go great, then you do still have Jackson Arnold, who's a little bit more of a seasoned guy, to go in there and help out Knight if he starts struggling early on. Goodness. Then you have Eastern Illinois at number 10, Alabama. Alabama should win, get everything back to where it was before going on to face Auburn the next week. Then you have Arkansas at number 17, Texas. Now this is a long history rivalry, or a historic rivalry, whatever you want to call it. Back when Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson used to play for the Razorbacks. That's how long ago this history has been and has continued on. Texas has the benefit of being at home. Arkansas also having a poor defense. Texas is undefeated at home, I believe. Yeah, Texas is 4-0 at home this season, so they have that benefit as well. For whatever reason, whenever Arch Manning goes on the road, he sucks. Apologies. Whenever Arch Manning goes on the road, he struggles. But at home, he's comfortable, he's back, relaxed, does what he needs to do, and gets the win. But I think Arkansas needs to really take interim head coach Bobby Petrino's words from this past Saturday's halftime when he's running off the field and interrupts the reporter completely and just says, "We're going to play everybody." He really and truly needs to play everybody if he's going to go into Texas and try to get their first and only. I'd say first and only, probably going to be, it would be their only, with Missouri in the back half at Missouri. Or no, that's in Fayetteville. Anyway, to get at least a conference win, especially against a high-ranked opponent like that, you're going to have to pull out all the stops. Another rivalry, Kentucky at number 14 Vanderbilt. Kentucky's had some success these past few games. They've been on a 3-game win streak, so they've got that going for them. And they're also a 1 win away from going from becoming bowl eligible. So they're playing for that as well before going into the final week, where they would absolutely have to win that game to be bowl eligible. So it's a big game in Nashville for Kentucky, but Vanderbilt is 6-0 at home this season, similar to Texas being undefeated at home. And the Commodores just need to keep winning, especially if they want to really make a run at the college football playoffs. They have to keep winning and hope that some of those higher teams lose, so that way they can kind of sneak in there and really get their shot and chance to go and make a run at the national championship. Then you have Coastal Carolina at South Carolina, kind of a interstate rivalry there, and South Carolina definitely needs to show up for this game, especially with the way that they lost against Texas A&M last week. Need to show that it's not a commonality. I don't know how Shane Beamer still has his job after that game, but apparently they're running with him even until next season, because he's quoted saying, "We'll be back here in the same situation or in the same spot, and we're going to be watching the TV, seeing where we are and what seed we get in the college football playoff bracket." So it seems like the Gamecocks are continuing with Beamer ball, and not sure how much more fuel it has, but they're going to putter until it can't go no more. Lastly, you have number 20 Tennessee at Florida for a night game. Another rivalry. It's called, I think it's like the third Saturday of September, but we're playing it the third week of November. I don't come up with the rivalry names, but it's gonna be interesting because it's tough to win in the Swamp. We've seen a lot of teams go into Florida and either lose or they have a struggle win, especially with the way Florida played against Ole Miss this past weekend. They could upset Tennessee for sure. And the last game of the night is going to be Western Kentucky at LSU. So let LSU kind of get in there and, really figure out what they need to fix, because there were some issues against Arkansas this past weekend. And, good Lord, I'm so sorry. Just trying to get comfortable. I should have sat on a pillow or something. But we're almost done here. Back to LSU. Getting a game plan figured out, having everyone firing on all cylinders, because Michael Van Buren started for LSU, and it's possible that he will start again for Western Kentucky rather than Garrett Nussmeier. But only time will tell. And this is the part of the episode where I still don't have a segue for this last final segment, but it is now time for the scripture spotlight. So the player that we are looking at today, because I was watching games and I spotted this and I clocked it, and I did everything I could, like pulled out my phone and wrote down the notes as quick as I could, because these past few players that we've put in the spotlight, they don't do the arm tape or the eye black or anything like that. It's all been just kind of social media posting about their faith. Well, this player right here, Alabama wide receiver Jeremy Bernard, I caught him on the sidelines. There was a catch. They went for review to see if it was complete or incomplete. It was ruled incomplete, but I noticed as he was on the sidelines the strip from under eye over nose back underneath his under eye, written in white, Isaiah 25:1. So that is the passage we are going to look at today, or the verse we're going to look at today, in order to shine the spotlight on Mr. Bernard of Alabama. And so it says in Isaiah 25, verse 1, O Lord, I will honor and praise your name, for you are my God. You do such wonderful things. You planned them long ago, and now you have accomplished them. And it's a really cool kind of how everything works. You see that God's working, because what did we talk about previous weeks? About trusting God, about him having a plan and you not being anxious, because if you trust in him and you know that he's got you and you follow his plan, then there's no reason to be anxious. And here it is saying that you planned, that you do such wonderful things, you planned them long ago, and now you have accomplished them. And it shows that God completes his plans as promised. When he tells you, like, if you do this, I promise I'll take care of you. Like, whatever the test may be, tithing 10%, and you're like, I have $1. Well, then give a dime. I'm gonna make it grow. And he completes his plans as promised. He fulfills his promises to you. And it just makes you think about the prayers that he has answered, and praising him for his goodness and his faithfulness, because he has you with your trust. And when he comes through, like, you start with trust, and you don't, it's his will, not ours. You trust him to take care of you, and when he answers those prayers, and he shows up, and he absolutely takes care of you, and he proves it, then you praise him for all of the good that he has done for you. I think I made all of that make sense. I'm not sure. I stumbled through quite a bit of that trying to get to the point, but hopefully my point did make it across as to what I got out of that passage from Mr. Bernard of Alabama. But thank you all for watching this episode of Across the South. Again, I apologize for making it look like I'm going to tell a story of a man whose hook hand was hanging off of a doorknob, or a car door handle. Old campfire stories. But we'll be back next week with a better setting, with decor on the walls. I'm not on the floor, I'm in a chair, on the bed, whatever it may be, with lighting that isn't a lamp sitting 2 feet in front of me. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, follow along. Spotify, Apple, YouTube as well. If you want to watch the videos, go to YouTube as well as Spotify. The videos are on Spotify. So do all of that, and I'll see you next time here on Across the South.